Tell me, what are you doing in Santa Monica here?
Well, I was here for a screening of my film Waiting, which is screening at IFLA. And then I stayed a few extra days because, I know Shonali really well. I'm staying at her house and I had some meetings to do, so I'm here for a week.
All right. Well, we're happy to have you in sunny California.
Yeah, it's beautiful outside. It's really nice to be by the beach. Can't wait to go.
Well, we'll wrap up soon enough, but we'd like to get to know you a little bit better.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about your reaction when you first read the script of Margarita with a Straw.
I loved it. I finished it in one go without stopping, and then I called Shonali, or I emailed her because I don't know if I had her number at that time, and I just said, I'm totally blown away. I can't, there's so many things going in my head, and also that I was terrified because I was like, I don't know how I'm going to pull off something like this, So yeah, that was my first reaction.
But as an actor, you made an incredible sacrifice. For 6 months, I believe, you lived in character, didn't do any other film or even a commercial. That's a very brave person. What did you feel at that time?
I mean, I think that was really important because a film like this, both me and Shonali decided that even after 6 months, if we felt it wasn't convincing, if we felt it wasn't authentic, then we would drop the film. And I think it's really important, if you're going to do something like this, you either do it completely convincingly or you don't. So that kind of, I was panicking because I was like, if I don't get that kind of time, I can't do this. So thankfully we were on the same page on that matter. And then, it's not just about mimicking somebody with cerebral palsy. You don't just copy someone who has CP, because each person is different. Every single person has a different, can have a different level of CP and can be either acutely disabled or hardly disabled at all. So it changes so much. And so it was really important to make Laila her own person and not just copy somebody. And for that, you needed time to imbibe it and to make it a habit, a daily habit, to kind of practice and practice until you weren't thinking about where you were putting your hand or how you were moving. It just became like second nature, so much so that sometimes even when I was out of character, I would find myself carrying, getting my beer like Laila.
Wow.
Because I got so used to a certain way of functioning. So yeah.
So when you first met Malini, what was your thought process? Were you daunted that this is so personal to Shonali and you're going to be portraying?
Yeah, I was scared. I didn't know anything about CP except for one film, My Left Foot, which I had seen a long time ago. So I wasn't exposed to disability in a big way at all. And I met Malini, and the first meeting was awkward because I think Malini felt really observed, obviously. And I was just quiet, but Shonali kept asking her, Malini, show her this, show her how you talk, how you walk, or show her what you do with your computer and all of that. So I think she was feeling really self-conscious, and it took a little while when we started becoming friends on our own terms, or we stopped hanging out just for work. And that's, I think, when I started understanding Malini as a spirit, as a person, which is really important for Laila because it's so inspired from Malini. So, getting drunk with her, going partying with her. She's a really fun, naughty person. So, that's when I really discovered the spirit of Laila.
So what was perhaps the most challenging part for you? Is there a particular scene that you found really, really hard to emote?
There were lots. I mean, obviously I was... the disability itself was something very daunting, but I was prepared for by the time we started shooting. So the other side was the emotional side, and although I thought I was super prepared, I think the scene between me and Khanum, the sex scene that we have, was the most difficult, because you're not prepared for 15 people watching you take off your clothes. So that was daunting in itself. I was feeling very vulnerable, and we had to do it many times over because it's a beautifully shot scene, but it needed to be done in different ways. it was, it was a long process. So I remember that scene being really difficult.
Has this film changed you as a person?
Of course, I think every film does, but in this case, in a huge way, my own awareness on disability, understanding why disability is such a problem in India, and it's basically because we don't see our disabled, because we don't have infrastructure, so they don't go out to malls, to cinemas, we hardly see them out. So because of that, people are unaware of what it is, are not sure how to treat somebody who's disabled. Whereas when I was in New York, shooting, the access is so much more that you saw a lot more people, and so people are much more comfortable with the idea of disability. So I understood a lot more about it. And then the second thing I learned was, as an actor, how much rehearsal, riyaz you can do. It's never enough. Like, I wish I could spend 6 months for each of my roles, because you get so much detailing in when you spend that much time. I know Laila so well now, and I feel like she's a real person. And sometimes in your characters, you end up being more of yourself, because of course you add some nuances and you understand the character emotionally, but a lot of the physical aspects and a lot of the habits that you have as a person, the way you speak, the way you walk, that stays. So when you have more time, you can detail the character more. So I think Riyaz is really, really important for actors.
And you've done a varied body of work, from Dev D, which is kind of an off artsy kind of a film, then Ye Jawani, which is completely commercial, to a hard-hitting subject like this. What would you like your career path to continue to look like?
I love it. I love the unpredictability of it. And I hope that carries on. I hope I keep surprising my audience and myself, because, if I wanted to do the same thing every day, then I wouldn't be an actor. I'd, work somewhere else. So I think it's really, that's the excitement of being an actor, that you're constantly exploring unknown territory, understanding humans who you think are so different from yourself. Then you find all the common grounds, and that's how you relate to the character and make the character relatable. But in the beginning, when I find a character which is so different from myself, I'm like, oh, I'm curious. I want to know how this person thinks and talks and functions. So yeah, that's the excitement I want to keep having.
Now, they say film is a director's medium, and it's about the director taking out from the actor. Do you disagree or agree?
I do agree. I agree that film is a director's medium, and theater is much more an actor's medium. I do theater as well. In film, you can be a bit of furniture sometimes, like there are certain treatment shots, there are certain things where someone, really the DOP and the director will be like, look down, look up, it's a very tight shot, so I don't want you to move more, and only blink once. And you're like, and you want me to emote in the middle of all that, So it can get like that sometimes. But at the same time, there's this whole internal work which I think happens before you shoot a film. I think once you're on a film set, it's only about time and budget and getting the shot right, and the light needs to hit you, and you need to hit your mark and all of those things. So what your graph emotionally, what your character is going through emotionally, needs to be sort of well graphed out before you come on set, so that you can jump into it at any point. It's like you've already lived the whole film, and then you come and do it.
Wow, very, very well said. I have to say, so articulate. You've been very vocal about your causes and things that you believe in and speak about, which is also child sexual abuse. And tell me, how important do you think as a woman for us to talk about this, and what can we do to educate everyone about it?
I think, yeah, CSA's child sexual abuse is something that's happening all over the world, but in India especially, I don't know if it's especially in India, but I do know that every friend of mine, every girlfriend of mine, even guy friends of mine have gone through some form of CSA in their childhood. And that's a lot of people, and most of them have brushed it under the carpet. Some of them have gone to therapy, but very few have felt that they can talk to family members or friends for a very long time. And I think that's because of the taboo that's around it, that it's just so terrible, it's such a bad thing. So firstly, just to get rid of that idea of trauma and just say, hey, it's happened, okay, it's not a big deal. It is a big deal, but you know, life goes on and you find a way to talk about it. I think that's really important, and to give people the confidence to talk about it. And the other thing is education for parents and teachers, you know, to sort of get to a stage where, you know, you do need to explain to your kids, because we're not explained basic sexuality. In school, you're explained in a very sort of biological, you know, textbook way what sex is, but you're not explained from a young age parts of your body, what it means, and all of those things. So it's really important that we educate our parents, that parents also feel that, you know, that's something that they can approach their kids with. That's really going to change everything for a kid to have the confidence to talk about
And
those
Kalki,
things.
what motivated you to come out and tell people such a personal thing about yourself, that you had been affected by that?
Actually, I didn't think about it. I was going for a conference on CSA because I support the cause. Rahul Bose has an NGO, and so I was going there to talk about the issue and what are the changes we can make, you know, on a practical in NGOs. It was a conference of all the NGOs in India working on CSA. So at that point, we were just doing a press conference, and I mentioned that, you know, something had happened to me, but I didn't tell my story. And then the next day it was all over the papers. Like, that was the only thing that was talked about. So I realized that it's a very thin line where, you know, it can be used as publicity, and you know, because you're a celebrity, suddenly everybody wants that shock value. So I refrained from telling my story, because that's not why I'm supporting the cause. I'm supporting it because it's happening so often, and too many people are silent about it. So, yeah, I didn't think about it too much when I mentioned it, and it's something which, again, it's not like, you know, it's at a point for me where I can talk about it to family, I can talk about it to friends. So I'm able to, you know, to mention it publicly. But hopefully it just gives people the confidence, or the idea that, you know, it exists. People need, if you don't accept something existing, you can't get rid of it. I think that's the biggest problem is that silencing. You know?
I agree, absolutely. And what can we look forward to in the future with all your work?
Waiting with me and Nasir, and it's a beautiful story about two people waiting in hospitals. It sounds very depressing, but it's actually really uplifting. It's about how people find joy and humor even in the darkest situations. And then I just finished shooting for Konkana Sen Sharma. She made her first film as a director, and it's called A Death in the Ganj, and it's set in the 1970s. It's a drama. It's based on a true story. So that was really fun. And yeah, I'll continue to do some strange spoken word stuff and theater and films, and I just, as long as I'm not bored, I'm happy.
Oh, good for you. And of course, my viewers will kill me if I don't talk about Ye Jawani. Tell me, what was your favorite scene of that film?
Ye Jawani Hai Diwani. I mean, I love a lot of things in that film, but I think my favorite scene is the scene where me and Bunny and Avi, where the three of us kind of hug after they've had this big pillow fight and they're really upset, and I come in, and it's just a very small scene, but for me it's the essence of these characters, you know, the friendship that they have, which even whatever discomforts they have in life, whatever disagreements, you know, you just hug it all out, and I think that's the essence of really good friendships.
Tell me, how did you feel when you heard you were getting the national award?
I was super excited. I was shooting, I remember, in Colaba, and suddenly I saw like 100 missed calls on my phone, and I was like, what's going on? And yeah, and I got a message from my assistant. She was the first one to tell me, and I was just really, I was jumping on the streets and
jumping on the streets?
Yeah, because we were shooting on the streets in Kalava.
Great.
So I was really excited, really happy, and for me it's a huge deal, because obviously it's like the biggest award in India for an actor. I feel it's a huge honor, but also because it's an identity thing for me. Like, it's like I'm so tired of explaining my Indianness to people, because I'm French. I have French origins, but I'm born and brought up in India. So for me, this was like, hey, I have a national award. This is my Indian, my desi, like my desi pass. So yeah, I was also excited about that.
Well, hearty congratulations for that. And we look forward to seeing more of you in theater, in film,
Thank you.
and in person, hopefully again
Yes.
soon.
Yeah.
Thank you, Kalki.
Thank you, Reshma.